Well, hello, and welcome to Wyatt Matters, where the takes are hot and the conversation, hey, it really could change your life. But I do want to warn you, our takes will be side-splittingly hilarious, because success for us means you snorting coffee right through your nose. Because spit takes. I live for spit takes. But we do have a reason for all that hilarity, and it's because we believe if we can get you laughing, maybe you'll keep listening and leaning into what we care about most of all, and that is giving you a life-changing message of hope. The only hope that will hold you up, even though the world is trying so hard to bring you down. Helping me deliver today's truth bombs with a little bit of snark, John Samples.
Hey, everybody, and I used to live in Hope, Indiana, so I am authority on today's subject.
Kimberly Herman.
Good morning from hot Phoenix, and I am melting in this hot city today.
And Bruce Templeton.
I'm right there with you in Las Vegas,
Yes.
record temperatures again this week.
So what a crew we've got today. Jeremy, let's do this thing. Oh, yeah. Did you hear about the latest menace tearing up our nation's highway? Nope, it's not some speed-crazed hotshot burning rubber in his cherry red Lamborghini. This troublemaker is of the non-human variety, a pint-sized pig dubbed the Baconator. And this runty little renegade has been seen tearing through traffic in what people are calling his Hamburghini. Sorry. He's equipped with a set of 4 lightning-fast hooves and a squeal that could wake the dead. This little brown jug, or not, is no ordinary swine. He managed to break free from a livestock trailer on Interstate 26 in South Carolina, leaving a cloud of dust and a baffled truck driver in his wake. This little sausage in the making has a grudge against grills, I guess, and a knack for dodging the coppers, at least briefly. Dash cam footage clocked him darting through traffic and evading capture with impressive agility. Darting being a skill set the 2 cops clearly didn't have. In fact, one officer did a double back and nearly tore his hamstring. Safe to say, commuters that day found this moment anything but boring.
Wow.
B-O-A-R.
I see what you did there.
Okay, yeah. All right. Bruce, rescue me. But are you impressed by how many wisecracks I could fit into one intro?
It's pretty impressive.
Punny. Very punny. Okay.
You got anything you want to add?
Well, we had a friend a few years ago in North Carolina, Pete Kunkel, who wanted his side hustle as a pastor, ran a petting zoo. He had a miniature cow that was the star of the show, and while she was in her pasture, she somehow got out and created a nightmare in around Kernersville, North Carolina. Got out on the freeways at an exchange and shut down the freeway in all 4 directions, north, east, south, and west. There were helicopters, 3 law enforcement agencies, everybody trying to corral this little cow. And Pete said at the end of telling me this story, he said, Bruce, I had no idea that little 3-foot cow could leap over a 5-foot fence. And I said, Pete, haven't you ever heard the story about the cow that jumped over the moon?
That's good.
That was a long way to go for a short throw.
All right. I wish it wasn't radio, guys, because watching these 2 cops try to chase that pig, man, that is crazy stuff. But, hey, grab some popcorn anyway, or maybe pork rinds, because the deadpan description by these 2 cops, it's as funny, well, probably funnier than my stuff.
Trooper Bullard, he got the call about the animal on the roadway. He gets there.
So when I arrived on scene, see a small brown pig sitting on the side of 26 on the median barrier, and 26 has really heavy traffic no matter the time of day.
And he says the pig really won't move. Every time he tried to get out, the pig would just run up the median barrier. Pig kind of doubled back, and that's when Trooper Bullet was able to grab the pig.
I've grown up on a farm my whole life. That was the easiest, safest way to grab that pig, and just what I'm used to doing at this point.
The pig's fine.
So, John, are you relieved that the pig is fine?
I got to tell you, man, I am relieved because let's be honest, if that pig had pulled that stunt here in the Hoosier State here in Indiana, it would have been pulled in a different way and served on a biscuit before the dash cam footage even uploaded. So yeah, I'm happy for how that worked out there. Although I could have used a biscuit.
Kimberly, how would you grab a runaway pig?
So you have to get on the same level as a pig, right? Psychological profiling. Okay. Psychological profiling is where I would go. So they're motivated by food. I would, get some food out, dress up as a big truffle, something like that to get their attention.
Well, there you go. Okay. So the bottom line is, though, that pig is going to end up sausage anyway at some point, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I don't know. We usually end with a Wyatt Matters. John, I'm going to ask you, is there a Wyatt Matters?
Well, it's kind of weird because, we stop traffic and risk injury to save a pig just to send him back, like you said, to the bacon truck. But we can't slow down long enough to check on the teenager standing by the overpass.
Ooh. Ooh.
Yeah. Wow.
Value of
That's
humans.
why it matters.
Yeah, that's not funny, is it?
That's good stuff. Kimberly, do you have something?
Yeah, so I was thinking, about this, why it matters, and even small things can create big problems, right? So the pig getting loose on the highway was a small problem or a small thing turning into a big problem. A small missing puzzle piece can ruin a finished almost puzzle. A small rumor can ruin a reputation. A late fee on a credit card can snowball into huge debt. That's why it matters.
Well, there you go.
Let me just say a word for the pig. This little piggy went to the market. His little brother stayed home. One little piggy got roast beef. One little piggy got none. And when he was grabbed by his tail, he went wee, wee, wee all the way home.
All right.
I'm just glad I wasn't the only one pulled across the median by their leg this past weekend.
But I want to come back to John just for a minute. I'll give you 30 seconds or so, bud. Why is it that we have come to treat human life with such callous disregard, and what can we do about it?
Wow.
20 seconds now.
I mean, well, if I stutter around a little bit, it'll be 10 seconds in just a moment. It's because we're more interested in hate than we are love as a society. That's just my go-to there, and I hate saying that, but we need things to laugh at instead of things to care for, and that's backwards.
Yeah. Anybody else have a clue about that?
I think you're right, John. It's like there's so much division today that if you don't agree with me, then I hate you and I dismiss you because you don't matter because we're not on the same page. It's just so terrible today.
All right, this doesn't fit, but it was funny for a while, so let's end with this.
That's all, folks.
Yeah!
Love it.
Nailed it!
That's why it matters right there.
All right, hot take 2. Hold on to your sippy cup, folks, because the funniest mom on the internet is blowing up cyber world with videos of her reenacting her toddler's genius outburst. It's crazy. What I'm about to play are real things that Kelly Vrooman, I guess you pronounce it Vrooman's 3-year-old, has actually said, and then mom acts it out and puts it on TikTok and gets all the credit for her child's genius. And it seems as though no subject is off limits, whether it's dining on rocks or dogs transforming into cats or guys wearing glasses.
That man with the glasses. He must be a man of the library.
This is the girl.
When I open my mouth, I just say, ma, ma.
And I'm sorry to say, even if the topic is poop, Kelly is all over it. Well, maybe not all over it. But, well,
cover your ears and cover your hearts, because I'm about to do the biggest poop anyone you've ever seen. Did you know animals can poop on anywhere?
oh, man, you got to love it. Now, it's really hard to be proud of this segment, but if you'd like to find out more about our show, just go to WyattMattersShow.com. We'll be right back. So welcome back to Wyatt Matters, and despite objections from our censors, we're continuing this topic with Mrs. Kelly Vrooman, the mom who reenacts the actual words of her 3-year-old. And this clip begins with Kelly coming into view wearing a giant pink plastic ring. You know, just think those old lollipop rings. Remember those? And then it cuts to Kelly the doctor.
I'm wearing a ring because I'm a girl T-Rex. You have blood coming out of your skin. I'm your doctor. Let me look in your ear.
Look in her ear.
You have a broken arm. And you're gonna have to wear a cast and never move it again.
Oh.
I'm gonna go check on something.
So she checks on something, comes back with a baby, and, well, just go ahead and play it, Jeremy.
Take care of your baby. It's a very born baby.
It's a born baby. And then she tosses the baby as she walks out of the room. But take care of it. Play on, Jeremy.
Want to go on a trip with me? I'm going to Pennsylvania.
Yeah, I do the same thing when I think about Pennsylvania. But then suddenly, Mom is outside, again, reenacting her daughter, and she's holding a rock. Play it out.
I just want to eat a real rock.
Okay, and what she did, for those of you that don't have, is it telepathy? Is that what it's called? She licked the rock, and then it fades to black. So, Kimberly, why do you think Kelly is mimicking her daughter in this way?
Well, she is demonstrating that kids can get away with whatever they say, right? And we think it's cute and adorable and, all that stuff. But when, imagine an adult did that on their own, we would think there was something very, very wrong. But the fact that she does it, especially with that background music, I mean, it's perfect. But as her daughter gets older, I'm not sure once she starts seeing her mom do these things on video, how she'll respond. Yeah. I mean, have you ever copied your kids when you were little?
Oh, yeah.
They didn't like it.
Oh,
Like
no.
Mine hated it because it was cute. And I'd be like, nope, she didn't like it. So it'll be interesting to see how much therapy her daughter's going to need when she gets older.
One of the ways I got away with that as a pastor, telling stories about my kids, is that we had a deal where I would pay them $5 for every story I told. And it got to where Josh would come up and he'd say, "You talking about me this weekend, Dad?" He saw the green.
Right. I want to go need some money. Oh, that's great.
So, John, do you have any thoughts about this whole imitation thing?
Remember Weird Al Yankovic? Take anybody's music and turn it into satire and just hilarious. I learned the other day that he never turned one of those songs into a novelty song without asking the person who recorded or the person who wrote it first, and getting their permission. Not because he had to, because he's protected by the First Amendment on satire stuff. But I just thought that was pretty impressive. That that's imitation with respect, and also trying to make money on what somebody else did. So you put all that together, and it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Bruce, I'm going to toss it to you, but last night, one of our heroes went to be with the Lord, and he's one of those guys I wanted to be like. And I'm sure you have some other people in your life as well. Do you have a story, funny or otherwise, about that?
Well, one of the radio preachers out of WLW on Sunday night was Ed Balsman, and I was just a big fan of Brother Ed.
That's right.
He told it like it was every time, and I got to where I would mimic his voice. This is Ed Balsman, Bousman, Lynchburg, Ohio. And we had the opportunity and the privilege of going to his house when we were in his town. And they conned me into doing my impersonation of Brother Ed in front of Brother Ed. and I got it. I said, well, okay, and I did the whole introduction to his show in his voice, I thought. And he kind of smiled and goes, do I sound like that? Okay. So, yeah. I gave up the Ed Balsman impersonations that very day.
They say don't meet your heroes because they'll disappoint you. But
well, I'm sure I disappointed him.
Anybody else have someone you?
Steve.
Yeah.
Mr. Wyatt. When I was a kid, I wanted to be Johnny Cash. That's who I wanted to be. When I was 4 years old, he had just released "Don't Take Your Guns to Town." I wore my toy 6-shooters everywhere. I've got them in lots of pictures. And I wouldn't answer to anyone unless they called me John or Johnny. True story. Well, you might have picked up on that wasn't my name back then. But my mom got so tired of explaining her precocious 4-year-old that needed to be called John that she actually had my name legally changed on my 5th birthday. So, my imitation of Johnny Cash led to a much better name than I had prior to that. So I guess I still walk that line, if you get my drift.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Clever.
Kimberly, do you have a story?
I was really trying to think about this, and the only thing that comes to mind, two things. When I was little at recess, Wonder Woman, that was me. I would be like her at recess, and we would role play, and I was Wonder Woman. But as I got older, I don't imitate people, but there are people that I want to learn from. And so I'll take characteristics that I really like and see how, not, exactly, but how I can use that to grow from that, whether it be, public speaking or writing. I don't think it's wise to copy people because then it's not your own, but certainly people can influence us.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think that personally, when a young preacher is learning his craft, I've encouraged them that copying in the early days is okay as long as your goal is ultimately to find your own voice.
Yeah.
Well, look, we're almost out of time, but we're going to talk more about imitation when we come back from the break. So hang in there with us. We will be back. For years, Mike Vance was Walt Disney's chief creative consultant. He's also the guy, by the way, that coined the phrase, "think outside the box," which to me is one of the all-time great quotes, not in the Bible. He was also a prolific author, and I think I probably read every word the man ever wrote. But it was during a lecture I attended that Mike unpacked what he called 4 levels of learning. And I want to give them to you real fast because it's good stuff. Level 1, the lowest level of learning, is what he called unconscious incompetence. That's another way of repeating what the ancient Persian proverb also said, "You know not, but you know not that you know not." That's level 1. You're not even aware that you're not aware. Next up, level 2, is conscious incompetence. You still don't know, but at least you know that you don't know. All right? Level 3 is conscious competence. And this is where you finally know how to do the thing that needs to get done. You didn't know it before, but now you do. And then level 4, the highest level of learning, is unconscious competence, where you can do the thing so well, it's just automatic. You don't even have to think about it. You just do it. So let me give you a real life example. Let's say your toddler is barely hanging on to level 1. He's totally unaware that his shoes even have laces, okay? Not a Mensa candidate, just saying. He's bottom level learning, which is unconscious incompetence. He doesn't know that he doesn't know. So you decide it's time to teach him about those mangy laces, and it takes a while, but he finally moves from unconscious incompetence to conscious incompetence. He knows now that his shoelaces have a purpose, but he just doesn't understand what the purpose is. So you keep teaching and teaching and teaching, and finally, hallelujah, Junior can tie his laces. Not every time, and he has to seriously think about it when he does it, but he has now reached level 3, which is conscious competence. But he's still not at the top level, where he can tie his laces and not even think about it. That's called unconscious competence. And level 4 is where your child will then remain until he's my age, and that's when he'll probably do what I did just last week. I finally bought a pair of Skechers slip-ons. Can I get a witness? So,
amen.
Why did I take you through that? Because a whole lot of people look at Christianity just like Junior with his shoelaces. They think that following Jesus is all about do this, but don't you dare do that. It's the 10 Commandments on steroids, just one long list of what you must do or what you dare not do. But that's unconscious incompetence. These people think they know, but they don't know, you know? So most people get stuck at level 1, and then they either give up on Christianity altogether and walk away from the faith, or they keep plodding, just trying to do the list, totally unaware that the list isn't even the point. Now, I'm not saying there aren't lists or that there aren't behaviors that we should avoid and others we should master, but that kind of stuff is just tying shoelaces. It's kind of what the Apostle Paul meant when he talked about putting off the old self and putting on the new self. He was trying to teach these people about what it means to follow Jesus, but they were just totally clueless about what he was saying. In other words, they were consciously incompetent. They couldn't grasp the concept. And so to try to help them out, Paul starts a list. Talked about putting off falsehood, putting on truth instead. Same thing with anger and stealing and so on and so on. And it was all perfectly legit stuff. But Paul barely gets started with his list when he realizes this thing could stretch to the moon and back. And by the time I get my readers from unconscious incompetence to full-blown unconscious competence, meaning they can tie their laces without thinking about it, it'll be time for the next item on the list. Dude, life by the list will never work. We'll never get all the way through such a list. Besides, to even try leaves the impression that Christianity is just lists. That's all it is. Do this, don't do that. Thou shalt not, and you better shalt not that one either. And here's why that's a problem. Though you move from incompetence to competence, you remain unaware that these lists exist and why. And so right in the middle of making his list, Paul stops, does a 180, and says something staggering. He says, just be imitators of God, all right? as dearly loved children. I'll explain why he did that when we come back. So just before the break, Paul realizes that explaining Christianity by the list just wasn't going to work. And so he said, instead, be imitators of God as dearly loved children, because life by the list, it just doesn't work. Where are you going with this, Wyatt? Here's where. The reason I shouldn't deal in lies, the reason I shouldn't steal, and other items on the list is because the awesome God of heaven is now living inside me. And he's a being of such exquisite holiness that it pains him to even look on evil, let alone have to live with evil. And I mean, that's why the whole Garden of Eden thing blew up, right? And besides, God is my hero, the one that I have chosen to model my life after, so that I am now consciously aware of my incompetent behavior, which, let's say, is lying. And since I'm no longer unaware that my lying offends God and his holiness, I want to treat my new house guest the way he deserves to be treated, because now I know. See the difference? The Christian faith is not now, and it has never been, about keeping lists. It's learning how to be just like my Father. You see, the list, that's just the micro view. It's the basement level, level one of understanding your faith. But Paul wants us to spin up to the macro view, the big picture, level 4, where you reprogram your mind so that as you make your walk of faith, it's just way more than good Christians don't. Fill in the blank. Whatever the blank is, because Christians, they don't do that. But that's not enough. And even if there are some really good items on that list you've made, it is not our job. It has never been our job to maintain such a list, to be a good person even, or to do more good things over the course of my life than I do bad. Living a life of faith, it's not a matter of be kind to your neighbor and don't kick the dog. No. The Bible says your job is to be like Christ. And in case you doubt that, when Paul was writing the Roman believers, he said the same thing. He said, God has chosen all of us who believe to be conformed to a list? No, to the likeness of his Son. In other words, looking like Jesus. That's the end game. So when Paul says be imitators of God, he's telling us that the point of it all, the main thing, it's not just learn how to tie your shoelaces. No, the top level, the uppermost summit of what it means to live a life of faith is to look like, live like, and love like Jesus. Okay, this is sidebar, but did you know that Jesus never used the word Christian? It's true, he never did. Christian is what outsiders called the people who followed Christ. And it wasn't used as a compliment either. It was a term of derision and scorn, kind of like, you little miniature Christ, who do you mini Jesus people think you are? So Jesus never used Christian. He used disciple. It's a funky kind of term, and few people understand, but disciple can mean one of three things. Either that you are a pupil who sits at the feet of your teacher and learn, or you're an apprentice who acquires important skills from your mentor, or you're a follower who walks in lockstep in surrender to your leader. You know what is not mentioned? Conformity to a list. Nowhere is there mention of a list. However, if you still have to have a list, here's your list. You ready? Jesus.
Yeah.
That's it. That is it. In fact, Jesus is the one who first said it. He said, if anyone would come after me, he must deny himself, take up his cross, and what? Follow me. Peel away all the layers of the Christian faith, and that's it. Follow Jesus. Or, as Paul says to the Ephesians, be imitators of God. But because Jesus is the only flesh and blood representative of God that we have ever had, if you want to move from unconscious incompetence all the way up to unconscious competence, then just match footprint for footprint and follow Jesus. Make it your goal to be more and more like him. Invite him to infiltrate every scintilla of your life. That's what it means to be a disciple. And you cannot be a Christian. You cannot be Jesus' disciple without following, conforming, and walking in alignment with Jesus. That's the plan, folks, and it's the only plan. Do you see now that when it comes to your faith, imitation is everything? No, actually, that's not quite right. Imitation is the only thing. If you want to follow after Jesus, do this. Seek to look like, live like, and love just like Jesus. Later in this same passage, Paul says that you and I were created to be like, guess who? Like God. Level 4, like God. That's why God made you. Not to keep some lousy list, because lists only serve to reduce Christianity to behavioral modification. And I'm not going to give my life for behavior modification. It's kind of like the old Christmas song, remember? So be good, for goodness sake. No! That approach may work for parents in the lead up for when the big Claus man is coming to town, but it makes for lousy theology when it comes to following Jesus. Instead, just imitate God. But let me take the pressure off, because Paul doesn't say you must be like God. No, just make his likeness your goal. Understanding all the while, you're never going to get there. This side of heaven, you will never, ever be just like God. The point is, until that day when we pass to the other side, pretend. Just like Kelly and her little girl. Pretend. Make your heavenly Father your ambition, and then, like a little child, maybe you watched your daddy shave when you were a little boy, and then when he wasn't around, you gave it a whirl. Hopefully you didn't end up in the ER, but it was pretend. I want to be like my dad. In that same way, imitate God. You remember when Belle kissed the beast? She didn't wait for the beast to get handsome and then she kissed him. She kissed him as though he was already handsome, firmly believing that her kiss would make him handsome. In that same way, even if you don't even slightly resemble Jesus, dress up like him anyway. Mimic his mannerisms and his speech, because nothing matters to you more than looking like, living like, and loving like Jesus. And then keep doing that until either you get to unconscious competence, which you never will, but try anyway, or you cross to the other side. Now, maybe it is a tired line, but it works. I mean, good lines usually hang around because there's truth in them. But when you come up against something hard or unfair and you're being challenged in what is it that I should do, the old question still works. What would Jesus do? Tired or not, it works. Because doing it Jesus' way, that is our job. It's not a list that you keep or a class you take. If anything, it's a picture that needs to be painted, and you are the brushes. It's a score of music that needs composed, and you are his instruments. And so you observe, and then you imitate, and then you evaluate, and then you try again. And then tomorrow, rinse and repeat. Do the same thing all over again. You pretend to be someone that you aren't now, and you never fully will be, but he's still who you want to be. And so, pretend. Okay? Just imitate your Father.
That's awesome. Such a good word, Steve.
Yeah.
We lost Bruce, didn't we?
We did lose Bruce.
Go ahead, Kimberly.
Well, I love the 4 steps, the unconscious incompetence, and then so on, because we all live in that, right? You gave the great example of the shoelaces, but we all, as adults, we live in that. We have behaviors and things that we don't realize we're doing, and that's something that in my counseling practice, I see that with clients all the time, and that's a helpful tool so that you can get to know where you need to go. And so when people are, following the rules of the Bible, which is not a bad thing, right? But that's the number one level. You want to grow from there. I love that reminder of we just need to step in. We need to study Jesus. We need to be in the Word to understand who He is so that we can imitate. Because so many times you're just following those rules, you miss that bigger picture. So I love this.
Hey, Bruce, I know we lost you there, but I know you have some thoughts here, so go for it.
Yes. Here's why it matters. If you know you are pursuing and not pretending to imitate the one who loves you beyond measure and loves you so much that he gave his only son for your salvation, or imitating someone who walks with that same God, then that's the impersonation that matters.
Great, Bruce.
John?
I don't always know what it means to be like God. I mean, I've got some tools, but most of my tools are duct tape and sarcasm, unfortunately, spiritually as well as in the real world. But I keep trying because I remember how my dad fixed stuff. I always took pride, after I got married and had my own home, I could fix anything. I had to, because we didn't have any money to, go buy stuff. So I had to keep stuff going. I was probably 50 years old before I realized that that's what my dad did. He fixed stuff, not because he had a manual. He didn't even have YouTube, but he kept showing up, rolling up his sleeves, and figured it out while bleeding from at least one knuckle. And I think that's kind of what following Jesus feels like to me most days.
I love this. Go ahead, John.
I was going to say, you said something else that just really hit me. You said, living a life of faith is not about being a good person. And I thought, well, dang, there goes that strategy. But you're right. If you really aim for Jesus, you'll end up doing good stuff. But if you aim for the list, you end up exhausted or smug.
Yeah.
And neither one of those look much like Jesus.
And that's why, those who are struggling to believe need to hear a message like this, because they really do have the impression that it is a list, and then that amazing believer that can jump through hoops and run the race with great speed, that person turns them off. They don't want to be anything like that person. And so, I just want you to know, if you're listening, you don't have to be that person. Imitate God instead. And Jesus, talk about the ultimate humility. Talk about being comfortable with people, no matter whether they agreed with him or disagreed, whether their behavior lined up or not. Just eliminate all of those ugly images that you have in the back of your mind, because they aren't true.
Do you remember the bracelets? What would Jesus do?
Yeah.
Bracelets.
WWJD.
Yeah, such a great reminder, because I kind of wish I was wearing one all the time too, because sometimes you're in those situations and we forget to think, well, what would Jesus do?
There you go.
Right?
There's the mission for this week,
Yep.
ladies and gentlemen. Just follow after Jesus. Ask yourself, what would he do? And then do your best to do it. We'll see you next week. Take care.